As I'm scrolling down my notes, we begin with the game in Las Vegas between an FBS team and an FCS team, the only one of the 5 games. One that we actually got right in terms of who we were picking to win. It wasn't too hard of a game. In the moment of watching it, it definitely was a struggle because, yeah, it was a real test for UNLV. In our preview to the lead up to the late scheduled game, yeah, how was the Rebels going to handle all of the new adjustments, influx of transfer portal players on both sides of the ball? I think it was very noticeable to see how they were not handling the Bengals of Idaho State with their defense. Just really lacked any kind of clogging in the holes. Idaho State was running up and down this team to start off that first half as UNLV went down 17-14. At one point, I think it was 10-0. UNLV had 2 unanswered touchdowns, and then Idaho State scored 1 right before halftime to go into the locker room with the lead. But they couldn't really hold it, unfortunately. They had a lot of good chances to not only extend that lead, but to get back into this game and then possibly win it on the road. It would have been just a massive win for this program that most of anybody didn't give them a real chance. I knew UNLV was going to struggle. This was kind of that same situation that we saw in the opener for last year's 2024 season with New Mexico versus Montana State. Montana State having a pretty solid team in years past, kind of like this Bengals program. And then on the opposite side of the sideline, you had New Mexico with a whole new staff, a lot of influx of players coming through the portal. Again, same situation that UNLV is kind of going through. And yeah, that we saw that kind of just new acclimation of players struggle. 3 interceptions though for Idaho State. Again, they had those chances to really get that lead, but those 3 interceptions out of the total of 4 led to 17 points for the Rebels. A lot of interceptions that were left on a silver platter for UNLV. Again, wasn't really impressed with their defense. Is really worrying as they gave up 555 total yards, 395 through the air, 160 on the ground. That big 160 was averaging 6.7 per carry. That is just disgusting. And then on top of that, one stat that probably doesn't look as nice when you kind of like say it out loud, but 5 for 13 for Idaho State on third down conversion rate. That's pretty solid, I would say, for an FCS team going up against an FBS opponent. Again, they just had those mental mistakes of throwing the ball to the other team, which led to that turnover margin difference not working to their favor. And then again, something that I saw someone else talk about, the governor of college football. If you were over on X, I would give them a follow. The governor was talking about how they changed their pick for the Mountain West if UNLV was going to go into the season with 2 quarterbacks. We saw that this game, and I think that's one thing they really need to figure out ASAP. The UNLV offense did pretty well, 539 yards total with Calandria, the transfer in from Virginia, went 15 for 29, 195 yards passing, 147 on the ground. That was pretty impressive. Calandria, a very mobile QB with 1 passing touchdown. The other QB in this dual quarterback threat, Orji, who went 3 for 3, 37 yards passing, 34 on the ground. That was a little surprising. There was some of those situations, especially on short down scenarios, that UNLV brought in the former Michigan quarterback, kind of didn't work out so well. I think that's another issue that they're going to have to address is their offensive line, probably moving around personnel eventually as the season moves on. And then 1 rushing touchdown for Orji. I think that was technically a passing play. It didn't look like too much of a draw design. We'll see that in the top 10 plays at the end of the stream. But it was a pretty amazing performance just on that play alone. Had a nice hurdle over a Idaho State defender, which gave UNLV the lead to end up being 38-31. Game that we got right. We should have gotten it right in general. We should expect this UNLV team to struggle throughout the season, even against opponents that they should be beating, like this past weekend. So that's the first game for week 0, as we have 4 more after that. Let's jump to the game in Lawrence. The Fresno State Bulldogs heading over to the newly renovated David Booth Memorial Stadium to take on Kansas. It's a very, very nice stadium. I saw a lot of cool memes of this stadium. Have you ever seen the one where it's like a horse and it's all drawn nice on one end of it, and then as it progressively goes through the body, it doesn't look so nice? It looks like a kindergartner, or maybe I drew it. But to Kansas's credit, this stadium actually looks pretty gnarly. To see like the views of it from the field, especially what we're looking at here on that right side of the sideline there, it's kind of a little bit more pitched than what it kind of like seems. So the perspective of it has it really like kind of looking over the field, has that kind of like just sense of it. And I think that kind of helped out. Not that it was too intimidating for the Valley Dogs, as the Jayhawks debuted this stadium and started off real fast. 2 touchdowns in the first quarter alone, and it was basically the first 2 drives they were in possession. But yeah, the Valley Dogs really struggled in this one to get just past the 50. I think they only had 3 drives out of the 7 or 8 that got past the midway part of the field. One of those drives was a touchdown, which was, I think, their first drive. They looked pretty solid, and it was like, okay, well, it looks like we have a game here in Lawrence. But the other 2 drives, one ended with a fumble, and then the other ended with a missed field goal. So just momentum that was really never going to be there in the first place. Kansas State played great defense, especially in the running department. Only give up 37 yards on the ground, average 1.3 per carry. That was just disgusting. Didn't allow the Bulldogs and Warner, the new quarterback for Fresno State, to really operate, and it just made it super obvious. Warner had to make a pretty nice play. It's not in our top 10, where he had to get the ball out of the backfield, kind of like a off balance little shuffle slash like little throw. It didn't really come off so well, but a little hints of his father there on getting the ball out of the backfield, not getting the sack. But yeah, they really just were telegraphing their approach on offense. It just something you don't like to see, especially opening up the season. But it's Fresno State into a new Matt Entz era. I think he's going to get that program up and running as the season comes along. It's a good lesson to learn. They'll probably take that film, get that running game going as the season goes on. I think that was a big thing. Obviously, Kansas did an excellent job in preventing them getting anything going on the ground. Jayhawks, one thing I think they need to do, even though they won 31-7 here at home, was the penalties. I think they had 9 penalties in this whole game, more than doubled what Fresno State was laundry going on their side of the field. And then another thing they need to keep in mind is like Jalen Daniels. Like he was taking some really risky runs here, where he was kind of staying in bounds a little late, took some hits here and there. Especially I think it was on that first drive that ended up, it ended up being a touchdown drive. But he needs to really protect himself. That was 2 seasons ago where he got hurt. But it was in the warm-ups, and he was out for the rest of the season, which was just like, whew. So it's a tough loss. All those seasons ago, last year, kind of get reacclimated back to playing football for a full season for the most part. But yeah, got to keep him healthy. He's really I want to say the whole offense, because it was really good to see LaShawn Williams, the transfer in from Iowa, and Daniel Hillshaw had a pretty decent performance. Williams had 57 yards with 6 carries, 9.5 per carry. That's a pretty gnarly average for 1 touchdown for his debut as a Kansas Jayhawk. And then Hillshaw had 13 carries, kind of the workhorse, for only 69 yards, but that was 5.3 per carry. that two combo will definitely gonna be a lot better during the season. You just definitely have to take off that the load for Daniels on the ground. He'll definitely have to make some plays, extend plays with his feet, but you got to get that duo in the backfield alongside him to really eat up those yards, so that their starting QB1 isn't taking those hits. But this is one we got right. I really at first it was giving us the vibes that Fresno State was going to keep in this game, but really after that first touchdown drive, it was just all KU for the rest of the last three quarters, and there was no looking back. It kind of felt like even at the end there, they took their foot off the pedal and not trying to completely obliterate Fresno State. Next game is in Conference USA. We got Sam Houston State at Western Kentucky. It was 41-24 there. Another one we got right. Tyson Helton coming off strong here, as it was all Hilltoppers throughout this one. One of, I think, the favorites in Conference USA, especially after this impressive performance of 506 total yards. Personally, my favorite to win the conference is UTEP. It's a little bit of a sleeper pick there. And then obviously you got Liberty, but after this a great debut to the 2025 season, man, dude, it was a great outing. We saw an amazing performance from Matthew Henry, their wide receiver star there. He went off for 148 receiving yards. And then their debut of their new quarterback from Abilene Christian, Marvick McIver, a pretty gnarly last name there. He went 33 for 51, 401 yards through the air, with 3 touchdowns passing it. And then on top of that, no interceptions. A pretty clean game for his first one with the Hilltoppers. The Bearcats just could not keep up. Even with getting almost 400 yards, they ended up with 382. It just wasn't enough. They're always playing behind. Especially, I think in that opening first quarter, they were already down a couple possessions, and then they made their efforts. They even had a fumble for a return on defense, which was pretty solid, but it just again wasn't enough. We'll see how Phil Longo does the rest of the season. I still think Sam Houston State is just going to be one of those sneaky teams in Conference USA and being competitive. They finished towards the top end of the standings at the end of the 2024 campaign. I would expect them to be in and around that area. It's been kind of awesome to really see them grow. When we started doing this here on Rumble in 2023, it was just a struggle for them, losing one possession games, close ones, ones that maybe they should have gotten that dub, but they just didn't have enough to finish, to go into last season being hopeful that they would finish games, and they did. I would think they would continue to do that even under Phil Longo, who was an excellent offensive coordinator when they were at the FCS level. But it's just a tough road win. Got to see what your team's made of. I do like that QB, which will be seen in the top 10 plays at the end of the stream. But yeah, 41-24, another conference game here for week 0. As we move over to the second to last game, that is Stanford at Hawaii. A real slugfest, especially opening up that second half. 23-20, a game-winning field goal for the Rainbow Warriors of Honolulu. Again, a great back and forth. Stanford just they look like the old Stanford that we were watching for at least into the late 2000s, midway through, and then they kind of just fell apart after McCaffrey left to the NFL. I mean, I have an old teammate that played for Stanford. He's still in the NFL for the G-Men. Into whatever era was post-COVID, just wasn't as good of a program as they should have been, and what they were building since Harbaugh went there. I'm forgetting the other coach that took over after him off the top of my head. But it was that kind of Stanford that we were getting that vibe off of. Really, stacking the line of scrimmage, winning with just simple leverage like that. Had the ball for most of this game. Had it for 13 more minutes than Hawaii. We're 8 for 17 on third down and 2 for 2 on fourth down as well. I think that's going to be a big factor as the season rolls on, is them going for it on fourth down and really converting and being real physical with teams. The difference maker, I guess, in this one was Micah Alejandro. In our previews, we previewed that this kid was going to be not going off, but being a factor for Hawaii. We were hearing echoes of it after we put out our preview back for the I don't even know when we started this preview. Was it May? What's the month before May? April? In April, mid-May is when we started to do our previews. And it was kind of like exactly what we said, is Micah Alejandro going out there, balling out, product out of Bishop Gorman, a kid that is tough as nails, as he was, again, balling out before and after his leg injury that he picked up off of the first drive in the third quarter. He went 27 for 39, only got 210 yards, but I think that was a big factor, again, that he picked up that leg injury going down really awkwardly, twisting up his body, but stayed in it, toughed it out, and was limping. You know, as they were driving down the field for the rest of the game after he picked it up, he was limping along with his offensive line, and still trying to get the ball into, you know, winnable positions. Kind of overthrew some to where, you know, if he didn't have that leg injury, it definitely would have been a touchdown, and kind of like allowed Stanford to stick into this game, really, to be honest with you. He also didn't throw an interception, which was kind of surprising, because there were balls that were kind of like floating up there to where maybe Stanford should have had an interception or two, especially with that injury. Had 36 yards on the ground on top of that, and that was kind of crazy to see him, you know, have to move around with basically one leg and still help his program get the victory at home to start off the season. I think one thing Stanford really needs to do is just switch out quarterbacks. Gulberson just was not the guy. Really good at handing the ball off, but was just a complete disappointment. The former Oregon State quarterback from last season transferring over to Palo Alto. He went 15 for 30 for only 109 yards, 3.6 per throw. That is just ugly. You don't want to have that number whatsoever. Also had an interception. We'll see that in the top 10 plays, and for no touchdowns whatsoever. Yeah, just gotta make that switch. I think Elijah Brown's the better solution, even though he doesn't totally work in this system because he's more of a passer. But again, he's from Mater Dei, another top end high school program that has produced some of the best quarterbacks that we've seen play college football in general. I think switching to him, giving him more of those play action moments. I think he's be able to air out the ball a little bit better, especially as he's maturing through his collegiate career. But we'll see what this coaching staff does for Stanford, as I think that needs to be the big switch going forward after this opening weekend. And then Hawaii needs to run the ball a little bit better. They only had 96 yards. That was split between Alejandro and their main back, who I'm forgetting off the top of my head. But I think that should be coming along a little bit better as they'll play a little bit weaker opponents. You know, Stanford played some great defense, to be quite honest with you. They didn't really force much. Just once they got into the red zone, when Alejandro was healthy, you know, that's when Hawaii really struck. They didn't have to like really pound the ball in between the tackles or just hand it off in general. In those kind of key situations and scenarios, it was more or less like, you know, Alejandro, he finds his sweet spot in the red zone or right outside the red zone, and he can really put a ball in the corner of their end zone for his new receiver, Harris, who's a transfer literally from the Cardinal. And then I'm forgetting the other guy off the top of my head. Two solid receivers, I think, there that Hawaii has. Just a great opening to the season as well. A game-winning field goal, which was set up by an awesome screenplay. That's why I really like Timmy Chang in this offense. They knew that Alejandro was injured. There wasn't too much they can do in terms of, you know, the approach, but the adjustments that they made as a coaching staff was really excellent. Kind of just shows, you know, the progress that this program has been making since he's come in as getting hired, and hope to see some more good things, and hope to see Alejandro get healthy to going into, you know, the rest of the season, that he stays healthy and doesn't go onto the sideline like he did in this one, even though he was only out for like a play or two, if I'm not mistaken. That was just a really great performance. Again, hope to see him more this season in general. But there it is, 23-20, a field goal to win it for Hawaii, as that was the second to last game. The last game is the first one, one that we did a watch along for. Hopefully you tuned in for it on our other channel that we do our clips of from this show and all our other shows. Kansas State versus Iowa State in Dublin, Ireland. It was 24-21. The Cyclones get the victory. And the only one we missed this past week, I think it was a nice 50-50 toss. You'll see in our pick'ems, everyone was kind of on the fence with this one as well. But it was just another one, a close one that we predicted. Again, in those previews, like we were talking about for the Alejandro situation, it was going to be a one possession difference. We felt it was going to be a close one, a banger. I think it ended up being a banger, just like the opener last season where Georgia Tech won with a walk-off field goal, if I'm not mistaken, or at least a field goal. This one was a bit of the same of when these two met last year in Ames. Just early turnovers for Kansas State. At least these ones didn't end up being points. They were just really lost drives, lost opportunities, really lucky to not give up points. Both teams were offered drives in their opponent's side of the field with turnovers and didn't end up getting anything. I think Kansas State ended up fumbling it or turning the ball over. And then Iowa State had a missed field goal with one of those fumbles in K-State territory. So it was a little sloppy play as it was expected, but I think the weather was a factor. If you tuned into this game, you can barely see the lines on the field. I think one of the reasons why is it's not a usual field that hosts American football games. It's, you know, mainly a soccer stadium for that sport. And like, again, the lines you could barely make out. I think there was a questionable call, and maybe the lines had something to do with it. They even repainted them at halftime as both teams requested it, and you still couldn't make out where, you know, the 50 was. Even the logo for the game, I felt like for the Notre Dame Navy contest a couple seasons ago, like it was well more defined. And, you know, I think it was even sprinkling in that one. Last year's, I think it was a pretty clean game in terms of like how it was all gridded out and everything. But this year, man, it was just like, it was even hard to see where the sideline began and where, like, you know, a foot was inbound or out of bounds. So it probably a tough day in the office for the guys calling, you know, the penalties, the downs, just the ref crew in general. Just a tough day at the office for them. But Iowa State, I think on defense, did kind of the difference here. They really didn't allow Kansas State to run the ball up the middle or in between the tackles whatsoever. And that was kind of the big thing here. Didn't allow Kansas State to set up any kind of big play actions up until like later down in the second half. And Iowa State was kind of up through most of this. I think it was a touchdown from them, and then Kansas State responded. Then after that, it was 7-7 at halftime. Then I think Iowa State eventually, I think I have this thing still opened up. Yeah, they eventually, scored in that third quarter. It seemed like maybe we were going to get some kind of tie into this. Just that one drive, Kansas State went for it on fourth down. We had like somewhat of a questionable call. We talked about it on the stream. We'll see it towards the end of this one, right before we head out, because we still have the image still on the screen for us here. But yeah, it was an interesting spotting of the ball, and I think again the lines had something to do with it, to where Kansas State ended up giving the ball back on downs. To me on the replay, it seemed like maybe he didn't get it over the first down marker. But once you like kind of saw the full replay of it, when I looked back at it, I was like, okay, this is Not that I just think it was a not a good call. And I mean, even when you go back to replay and you couldn't get like maybe the call right. I think it was the Kansas State first down for sure. That was kind of the big difference maker, because then when we saw that drive that ended on fourth down, I believe Iowa scored a touchdown right off the bat there. Yeah, it was end on downs. It was on Kansas State's 30-yard line, which then led to that kind of touchdown difference. Even though Iowa State got the field goal before that to kind of go ahead and give them a little bit more of a cushion. But it was a little fireworky at the end. Kansas State then gets the ball back, one play drive, where Avery Johnson finally hits one of his new receivers for a 65-yard touchdown. Bradley, I think he's coming in from Purdue, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, that then, you thought maybe K-State would have another chance at getting the ball back. They didn't. Iowa State just drove the ball down. The right side of the offensive line really took control of this game. I would say towards the end of the third quarter, it was left guard Black and right tackle Miller for the Cyclones. Those two guys just became real difference makers and opened up holes for Hansen, who had a quiet first half. Really didn't show up until the end of the third quarter, where he started to get those hands off. Sama the third kind of was the main guy throughout this game, and it wasn't until the end of this one where again Hansen came out and found those big holes that right side of the Cyclone offensive line made. And that was consecutive drives for that initial touchdown to end the third quarter, to lead up to the field goal, and then even to that second to last touchdown of the game, which was Beck with a 7-yard run off of that turnover on downs from that previous K-State drive. And then again, they saw a little bit of fireworks where Iowa State went for it on fourth down. If they converted there in the red zone, they basically win the game. They ran the clock out with 3 knees, and that was it. That was the game there in Dublin, Ireland. It delivered, I think. It was definitely a boring first half, but once the teams made their adjustments, Iowa State making the better ones over K-State. And then on top of that, both these offensive lines were dealing with injuries. Burr, the left guard for the Cyclones, he was labeled as out before kickoff. I think it was a couple of days. They released like a whole injury list. Gunnar Maldonado, the new transfer safety in for the Wildcats, he was probable and he got some snaps in there. And then Kansas State had some linemen already out. Fitzgerald, who was an Ohio State transfer, he was labeled as out. And then they had a bunch of different switches on the right side of the offensive line, where Nelson, the transfer in from Penn State, started in at right guard. And then next to him, you had Enos Jr., who was a transfer in from Pitt. And then you had Andrew Lagang, who came in at right tackle. I think Enos Jr., either it was a switch or an injury. Didn't really say who it was or what it was, because it's one of the parts of the commentary broadcast doesn't really cover. It's like a lot of the stuff on the offensive line here at Your Sports Outpost. That's kind of the thing we do here. Was kind of pay attention to those little details. We saw the switch around and adjustments. I think they came out with Inyos back into the opening part of the second half, and then they made that switch back, which it is what it is. It kind of was a makeshift offensive line. Then on top of that, almost Talalele, who was a transfer from USC, he's like nowhere to be found, either on the depth chart or in the reports for injuries. So a lot of interesting things I think Kansas State's going to need to address as the season comes to them, especially in between the tackles, if they can't run the ball effectively. Oh, and then another thing too was that muff punt return from Dylan Edwards that took him out for the rest of the game, which is super unfortunate because he was a big electric guy for them, especially in that bowl game where he got just monster runs, where Giddens, who's now in the NFL, sat out for, and he was a big difference maker there. So Joe Jackson kind of got that opportunity. I saw Rice, the third string running back, get some opportunities in the backfield for Kansas State. Just a lot of little pieces moving around that maybe not a lot of people that at least I've been hearing from, like, you know, others talk about this game in their reviews and kind of not really getting into like the details that we do here at Your Sports Outpost. But yeah, Kansas State loses there in Dublin, Ireland, 24-21. I think a great game that, you know, I think it's even worth going and seeing the highlights, at least to go see like what I was describing with the field, you know, the fumbles, the turnovers, the end of the game where certain drives had to go certain ways for it to go Iowa State's way. And yeah, that is our review of the 5 games, the aftermath.